Yo, what's up, my friends? Yeah, you guys know me. I'm Beto Gudiño, and I'm broadcasting live, or podcasting, I should say. Let's not use broadcast anymore. Let's use podcast, because this is Christian Podcast, and I bring you weekly top God thinkers to talk about matters of Christianity and culture. But in today's very amazing, unique episode, I want to introduce you to one of the most important persons in my life, and probably in your life too, besides Jesus himself. Okay, so let's do it. Mili, welcome to the episode. How are you doing today?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, my love. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. I don't know if I'm kind of red, but
yeah, you're blushing.
It's a privilege to be here with you in this moment of our lives. Thank you for inviting me to your show. This is wonderful.
Love it. Okay, so what we're doing today, Mili is my wife. If you haven't noticed in those first 10 seconds of the episode, Mili is my amazing, beautiful wife. And in 2020, we started, well, it really started before that, but in paper, it started in 2020. Our vision and dream for what we want Christian Podcast to be. So we started right before the pandemic. Nobody knew what was going to be ahead of us. And the pandemic brought, well, you know what it brought. All kinds of chaotic and confusion and whatnot. But it also brought the amazingness of me and my wife being able to start this dream together, which is Christian Podcast LLC. And one of the goals and visions is that we can start blending in a little bit of our background, which is Latino, with the knowledge that we or the input really that we get sometimes from the Western culture and sometimes the experts that we find in the Western culture. And likewise, the people that are from Latin America who are experts in their several fields, and start like bridging the gap and say, what can we learn from each other? What can the Western world learn from the Southern world or from Latin America? And what can Latin America learn from those, in higher education in the Western world, or those people that are bringing us like all these new topics and whatever. So for that, I titled this episode, Nobody Goes to Church. What do you think of that, Mili?
Well, that's the story of my life, Beto. When I started long time ago, I remember our church in that time, I'm talking about maybe 7 years ago, the church was packed and we were thousands of members. But I've been looking that church split. They used to have like 5 campus, and now they have just one, and it's empty seats. So it's the reality. And on our church too, we saw that thanks to the pandemic, a lot of people, and because we're online too, they have the comfort to watch the service on the couch. So yeah, a lot of people it's not coming to church, or they basically, I don't think if they don't believe in Jesus Christ anymore, or right.
So there's a little bit of that, and I think us coming from Latin America, nobody was going to church anyways, right? People were going to church only for weddings and maybe baptisms and things like that, because normally the mainline religion, if I would use that word, is Catholicism. So being a Christian growing up in Mexico, it was already like being on the fringes, being on the margins, following Jesus. And to me, it felt a little more authentic because of that. It was nothing that was like established in the culture, like, okay, everybody's Christian. So I think that's a little bit of what's happening in America and maybe the Western world, like Europe and England and like all these places, is that it just became part of the culture, like, oh yeah, everybody's Christian. So some pastor was saying that I talked to in a few episodes ago, I think it was Brian Sand, that said, when everybody's Christian, nobody's Christian. Right? So with that, we wanna in this episode, Mili, I think first I'm like super excited to introduce you to the audience because we are gonna force you who is listening and watching to say, am I hearing a big accent? Like Beto has a big accent. Does his wife have an accent too? And how am I going
1,000 times more than you, I think.
And what are they going to do with that? So yes, you're going to have to deal with the accent. And that's okay because that's part of this. We want to bring these voices and we want to start bridging what's going on here. So with this episode, Mili, I just want to talk about a little bit of the vision that we have for Christian Podcasts. So even as we do that, like today we're celebrating that we have these cups in our hands for the first time ever. And tell us about these cups, Mili, for those watching and listening.
Well, Beto, I hear you, and I know that you have a big dreams. And at the beginning with this Christian podcast company, we have like, oh my gosh, maybe we need to reach out to people and look for sponsors so they can help us to make money and maybe, we can survive. But well, that you thought like why we can have our own products, right? Mm-hmm. We have our own hats and shirts and we can start selling them. And from there, we can grow this company we have of Christian Podcast. And I know that it's God's dream because it is big. It is big. And only God do big things, to see. I can see the future and look at you working in this massive production of short videos, we want to bring our community, our friends, our stories, who they're close to us, Beto, and we can expose them. Like, look how God is working in this life, with our close friends.
Yes, I love that, Mili. So, yeah, God gave us this vision of starting Christian Podcasts as a way to, like I said, start bringing the voices out and bridging the cultures. We live in a globalized world, and I think this is necessary to learn from each other, to learn what's going on, what we can learn from those who are doing things right. So even when it comes to like people leaving the church here in America, there's even this phrase called ex-evangelical, which means the people that are no longer evangelicals, which, I've never been like a guy that follows so much. What are they called? Like, denominations when it comes to Christianity. I mean, like I know the main denominations would be maybe like Protestant and Catholic, something like that. But then like all the little divisions, Anglican, Presbyterian, like all of those to me, they're just Christian, right? Even Catholic to me is just like, all of it is just Christian. And to me, there's a big difference between following Jesus and considering yourself Christian. I think to me, the point is more like to be more like Jesus rather than to be more like a religion. So anyways, with all that in mind, I think one of the goals for Christian Podcast was not to have a name that would point people to the easy. I think in America, a lot of people would use the word Christian almost as, it's safe for the whole family. So we do want to produce content that is good, that has good values, that adds value to the viewer and the watcher. But in a sense, Christian Podcast is about the conversation. It's about bringing like even the hard topics to a discussion and say, okay, why is culture facing like all these challenges? Exactly. And with that, one of the goals, Mili, I think of Christian Podcast has been, for a lot of people, when they hear podcasts, they think we are creating an audio experience, like almost like a broadcast that you can listen to on an iPod. That's where it came from. But we really started seeing that podcast just meant media. So with that in mind, I think the vision has become, can Christian Podcast be a media company that produces like quality shows that can entertain people and that can also add value, challenge, even have a moral to the stories. So one of my big dreams, Mili, is to start creating like little documentaries, short films, and one day would be all amazing to have like a feature film that you can watch, on our ChristianPodcast.com or whatever. It could be available on Netflix if Netflix is still a thing by then when we do this, because Netflix it's on their way down a little bit. Just like Blockbuster disappeared a few years ago. So anyways, with all that in mind, Mili, I think you're exactly right when you said we were looking for a sponsor for our show and for the podcast that we're doing. We're doing a podcast in Spanish, you and me, where we just add value to people, to our community, but we want to bring the voices that we're learning from. I'm getting tons of books by all kinds of book publishers here in the U.S. So we're learning and growing a ton, and we want to bring that learning to our community, right? And that's why today we are broadcasting Christian Podcast en Español on our English channel, because we want you to be aware of that. We want you to be part of that conversation. And even if you, for whatever reason, you happen to speak Spanish or are interested in Spanish, well, go check out the other episodes too. The other ones where you and me talk, Mili, it's a little more like casual and a little bit more fun than the English ones, because the English ones, it's more like we're learning and we have always an expert. But in the other one, we talk about like daily routines, daily things, and inspire ourselves even daily, and even our daily challenges as a couple. So that's so cool, Mili. So again, just bringing it back to why you said we are sponsoring ourselves. It's part of that dream and learning curve that we've realized in the past few years, really, when we started Christian Podcast 2 years ago, is that the dream is no longer to have sponsors, even though if there's a big sponsor who wants to sponsor us, that'd be great. But it's, can we be a company that believes in itself, right? And with that, we're saying, I think Christian Podcast has all the potential. So we're starting to create little things like mugs, hats, shirts that you can purchase online. And that's a super tangible way to help the show grow, expand, share it with friends. So all of that. So people who are watching right now on ROKU, when you watch, when you subscribe, when you follow, when you give a review, especially a positive review, all of that helps. A super big deal. And all that to say, finally, that the goal is to start creating content that is not just a podcast and audio content, but start creating media that adds value to people. So one of my first goals, Mili, I would say, is the first one we have in mind. I have a story where I have a friend that I worked in construction with for about maybe 10 years or so. And I've known him for about 17 years. And I want to tell his story through Christian Podcast. So I'm going to bring my camera. I'm going to do a documentary on the challenges he's faced coming from Mexico. His, some members, really close members of his family passing away. Super hard situation. And I want to bring that to like a little short documentary film where people can watch, be inspired, be challenged, and also get to know the stories that happen here in America and everywhere, but really start learning from one another. This is what somebody faces. This is what they live through. And this is why their story matters, right? So that's what we want to do with Christian Podcast, Mili. And that's why I brought you on this show, because you've been a big part of what we're doing in the Spanish stream. And I thought, Mili, we got to do this in English too. Yes. Even though, like we said, there might be a little bit of... No, some people have already told us sometimes, like, oh, it's hard to listen to accents and... hard to listen to people when they, whatever, when you hesitate in speaking English.
I think God is working in their patience. Don't you think?
Yeah. So what do you think about this dream and vision, Mili, as a wife? I've been talking too much on this episode already, but I want to say this. When we started, and even when I was promoting Christian Podcasts on Google and like all these places, I was saying I was the founder. And then something hit me hard, for those feminists out there. You're right. Something hit me hard and said,
it was not me.
What are you talking about? It was the Holy Spirit. What are you talking about? Like, Mili is the co-founder of Christian Podcast. She has invested even more than you think in this. And I thought, I've been so stupid. So I'm sorry for that, Mili. And I want to
No.
say, I just want to introduce you as the co-founder of Christian Podcast. And as much as this is, no, my vision has a lot of input into this, I think your vision and your dreams have even more weight to what this can look like in the future. So would you speak to that, Mili?
Well, but I'm not offended by your words. You know, I don't think you're stupid. I think you're so gifted. And for me, it's like we are one, you know. So whatever dreams you have, I feel like that's my dream too. So I'm just want to be used by God, and I'm here to serve. I'm here to support you all the time. And at the moment you're learning and you're having all these interviews with amazing people, I'm learning too. And I will, when we bring all this information to our Latin community, it feels so great. And I know we are doing God's dream because I feel so happy for what we are doing. We live hard times too. You know, life is not easy, and I feel like sometimes we are passing for storms. Like sometimes we think that God is not here with us, but something happened, and thanks to all the seasons that I'm under storm, I know that God is always walking with us, and I know He's gonna make this Christian podcast something big and beautiful because we are just an instrument. He will do the rest.
Wow.
And thank you to all the audience to being here and just to watch what we're doing, and for your prayers. If you bought already a product, a few of our friends bought our products already. Thank you so much for your support. And I know we are one. God is awakening people, and we're a movement. This is gonna be amazing. I'm so excited for what is coming.
Yes, and I'm inspired by other companies that have been, when I start talking about other companies, some people might even start thinking, you're conservative or you're liberal and like these things, because especially the more I talk to people all over the spectrum and experts in their fields and whatnot, and when I see the content that's produced and out there on the internet, there's a lot of, who is who's on the left, who's on the right, who's conservative, who's progressive, like all these things. And in a sense, I want to speak to that a little bit, because some people might hear Christian and just think, this might be the most conservative company in the world. And maybe so, but I think the dream is that we can have a voice that represents Jesus well. I had an episode just like 4 episodes ago with Al Lopus. So check it out. He talks about how he helps companies and churches flourish by understanding how their vision as a company should really represent the values of who who really is behind what they represent, which is Jesus Christ, right? Especially for churches, for companies that consider themselves like a Christian company. So in this case, we're the Christian Podcast company. So, it's almost like embedded in the name already that this, in a way, represents, Jesus Christ. So what does that mean? What does that look like in the day-to-day, in how we want as a company to represent those values in the content that we produce? So I think, to me, more than anything, it means we want to be Jesus-like. And Jesus was, to me, is like the most amazing person, where he was completely divine, completely human. He was not afraid to call out people in their, whenever they needed to, but also he always approached people with compassion, right? And with gentleness. And he called people out also of their victimhood mentalities every now and then, and said, hey, do you want to live? Do you want to be healed? Do you want to live a life with purpose? Do you want to pursue a life that's meaningful? And he challenged people, really. So I think if we take that to what is Christian Podcast, I think as a company, our dream and our mission and vision is to start creating content that it's media, that it's the highest quality, and that it represents Jesus well, that it brings the conversation, it brings the voices, and it listens maybe even before it declares or proclaims, a specific set of values or beliefs. It listens first. And I think that's what I've been doing with the podcast. I've been listening to people. I'm not one of those who is online and gives their opinion. I do have my opinion on a lot of subjects, but more than that, I feel like my opinion is I'm going to listen. And after that, I feel like there is, though, like this sense of like the prophetic, where it's like you're called to speak from God. And so I think Christian Podcast has a little bit of that, especially as we create content that has a moral to the story, So like I was saying, I want to create this documentary with my friend, and I think there's going to be an epic moral of the story, which is getting to know somebody's journey, somebody's challenges, the things they face as immigrants here in the U.S., and even all the set of challenges that we face coming from a different country and coming to a country that's, wow, America is a very special place in the world when it comes to, ideologies and beliefs and what it's grounded on. So anyways, all of that to say, we're super excited for Christian Podcast, what's coming ahead. And Mili, I think you're a master's in marketing, and I think your heart has been that you want to work for a company that is a transnational company that, it does business around the world. Would you say that this can be that company?
Of
Mili?
course, because I have a big heart for people, Beto. That's how I call him, Beto. I love kids. I love moms and dad. I love the elderly. Like, I feel like I have so much love to give. And I know that through this company, El Christian Podcast, we can do that. We can, embrace people and love people, because at the end, that's what matters. The love, what we have for others. And that's my daily dream or my daily motivation, just love. And we can do that through El Christian Podcast. And for that, I feel like we need the people. We need all of you. Because I know we are instruments, but we need your support, don't you think? And there's so many ways that you can pray for us. You can buy our products, or maybe you want to produce videos, right? Maybe they want to produce something with you. It's an amazing. We need good content out there.
Exactly. That's so good, Mili. So tell me a little bit of the challenges that you have faced when it comes to getting to this point of like believing in what Christian Podcast as a company can be. Because I know you, right? We've been married for like 17 years or something like that. We're not going to say because we forget. But so anyways, in all these years, we have done everything, Mili. We have sold popsicles. You have worked selling cars and houses in Mexico. Here for people here in the U.S., but to buy a house in Mexico, right? We are immigrants. We're undocumented. So there's a whole set of challenges that we face. So tell me a little bit of how do you feel coming to this point where you believe, I feel like now you believe in what Christian Podcast can be. But then also I feel like there's a sense of like, why is God not choosing like the rich and wealthy and the powerful and the organizations, the Christian organizations in the U.S. that are already doing amazing things? Why would God start with us humble servants who are immigrants, who are low income, who like all these things? Tell me a little bit of how do you feel? Like, what are those challenges you faced? Not from a victimhood mentality, but just what have you experienced when it comes to those challenges?
Well, I'm a mom of 3 kids, and it's already hard to deal with that, to give the best I can for them. I really care. I love them, and I want them to be the best leaders, the best lovers out there, outside where they go to school or wherever they go. So that's, I feel that when I think on my kids as I already give my life like Jesus did. No, he gave up himself for us. He died on a cross for us. And in the same way, I feel like all my dreams, all everything I was having, back in the days, is like now I can do anything because I have my kids. I've been listening to these voices, Beto, that put me down. Like, it's not your time. You can do nothing about it. You're not gifted. You're not talented. You don't have what you need. You don't have money. You don't have this, that. So I listened to that voices for so long. And also at the same time, I try to read books, to meditate, to read the Bible. And thanks to that, I feel like I just wake up. It's like my kids, they're not going to be an excuse. They're not going to be an excuse that don't keep working on my dreams. I know I'm gifted. Why? Because God created me. Like I'm His creation, and I know I can give. So why not? Mm-hmm. It's today. Today, something big is going to happen. Today, I'm being used by God, and now I decided to lock that voices and hear what God has for me, and what He's thinking about me, and I am who He say I am. I feel like, and also I think all these past years, 15, 16 years that I've been here in the U.S., is all my experiences are for a reason. I grew up, like I'm close to 42. I'm 41 years old, and I'm still learning, but I'm ready. I'm ready for God, to show us what's the future, and I'm excited. And it's been hard times, Beto, hard times, but I know God is going to use our story to lift up more people.
Yes. Well, do you want to speak to those hard times? Do you want to say what some of those have looked like for you?
Yeah, for example, I remember one day I was having $20 on my pocket, Beto. $20. And I went to buy something, and when I look at my pocket, I realized that $20 were gone. And I cried like I lost, $20,000, because for me was everything, that $20 to buy food for my kids. So it's been hard to don't have money to pay our rent, or just to buy food for my kids, to provide for my kids. And I one day, one of my kids came and asked me, "Mommy, why we used to go and eat with the homeless?" And I remember in that point, I was telling, let's go to a restaurant, like a buffet. And I was happy, and I showed my best face to my kids. And I told them, well, I remembered, that days, and it's because we used to have no money. But the resources are there, and I need to feed my kids. It was hard. It was hard times to walk through this place and eat with the homeless, and it was a lot of crazy people, but at the same time, it's people who needs love. And so I remember bringing my kids to these tables full of people who are, I was having home, right? But they don't have a home. So when they see us, I see their big smiles, like, oh, look at that kids. And maybe it was a purpose for God, for us to go there. So people can have a little bit of happiness, because a kid, a child, they don't know what's going on in the world. They're just living, and they're just happy. I think like the time pass, and if we let the light affect our hearts, we can be sad and depressed. But if we hold God in our lives, we can see that everything have a purpose. And for me, that moment was super hard, but I'm not there anymore. right? It was an experience. And I know my kids brought happiness in that place. And me too, because I was having my smile and God bless you here, God bless you there, and hugging people. I can hug a homeless, why not?
Yes, Mili, I feel like so for those who are watching and listening, you don't know Mili that much unless you listen to the other episodes or unless you know her personally, like I get the honor to do. But Mili, I don't believe in reincarnation, but she's got like the spirit of Mother Teresa. So she's Mother Teresa. I'm saying you are Mother Teresa reincarnated.
Oh, thank you, Beto.
No,
That's a huge deal.
You are you. I mean, you are Mili, you are Miriam Gudino or Miriam Muñoz, because sometimes you don't use my last name all the time, and that's okay. That's just fun. But Mili, you have a heart for people like no other person right now, like living on this planet. You are like the new Mother Teresa when it comes to this community, and you love people well. You offered yourself up for others, for your family first, but then also for those in the community. There's people you have saved in our neighborhood that you have helped. We had our neighbor, like next door neighbor, who was infested with roaches. Thousands and thousands of roaches everywhere. She would slap the roaches off from her arm because they were crawling on her already. And Mili, you went in and you cleaned her house, and you said, "There's no way we're gonna leave you alone here in this situation." And then finally the family came back and started helping. But if you weren't there, she would have died. I mean, she already passed away at this point, but she would have passed like way quicker and super sad, And there's many other people you have helped around our community in in that way, where you see the need and you say, "There's no way I'm just gonna have a blind eye to the need I'm facing right in front of my eyes." So you are that person, Mili, and I feel like God is, He loves that attitude, He loves that heart, and He's gonna bring fruit out of that we may even be unaware of that He's doing. But anyways, so Mili, so I have what they call like a vivid vision or dream of Christian Podcast, that within the next 3 years, we want to be a media company that it's already established, that we can create content that is entertaining and amazing, and kind of like something you would watch on Netflix or Daily Wire or like all these platforms out there, Amazon, whatever, whatever you listen to. There's all this like really, really good content that's being produced, and we want to do that, right? And I think as a guy that comes from Mexico with a dream of communications, God opened doors long ago for us to. We were doing interviews at Harvest Crusade. We were interviewing like Greg Laurie. We were interviewing Christian bands like Jars of Clay, Switchfoot, whatever, right? Phil Wickham, like all these Christian artists. And I think now, Mili, there's a little bit of that hey, like we've had this in our past. Let's utilize everything we've learned, and let's start creating something that people can enjoy. Like people can be even challenged in their faith. And I'm not saying Christian Podcast is going to be the only one. There's a lot of companies that are doing that already, and yay for those. And that is amazing, and we support it. Like we've been watching, the Chosen TV series produced by like Angel Studios. So I'm inspired even by that, by people who are saying, okay, if Hollywood doesn't open the doors for us, we're going to trust God to open doors for us. So in almost like in the same fashion, here's this couple from Mexico, like immigrants who are coming to America with this dream. And our dream is to add value, and what better than to start telling stories that inspire and challenge people to have faith, to continue to pursue God, to continue to pursue maybe who Christ is. And ultimately, the final goal would be for people to invite Jesus in their hearts and be more like he is, right? I think to me, that's what it means to be a Christian. It's to be more like Jesus. If it doesn't mean that, I think, it's just a word or it's just religion. So that's what my vision is. But from your vantage point, Mili, what do you want to see happening? Like how do you see yourself in 3-5 years from now?
Well, I think I'm living my dream right now, Beto. This is my dream come true, to be next to you and just express ourselves and tell people who is Jesus and what he's doing on our lives. That's my dream come true. If I see myself in 3 years, I see my whole family. We have 3 amazing kids. They're super talented and they're working with us because we are a team and we are producing an amazing stories, because we could see good movies, but I feel like now on the days, the movies, they lost their message or their sense or common sense. Like, I don't know how to explain that, Beto, but we need to reconnect and tell true stories where God is working and God is doing an amazing things. And I think, Beto, too, that Jesus is looking at the poor. Jesus is looking at the people who's less gifted. And that's what I love the Bible and all the stories in the Bible, because when God chose all his disciples, they were no one. They were not having like masters and doctors degree. No, they were working at the beach, fishing, and common people. And I think that's who we are, with no one, with nobody. We're just here to be more like him. And I think we're doing great. We deny ourselves every day because as a humans, we are sinners. We get mad at our kids too, and we say stupid things. But I think every second and every day, it's an opportunity to us to be more like him. And, just enjoy the day, enjoy the purpose of God in our lives. So yeah, I think we're producing nice videos, nice content, and that's all. I just want to love people, and I think we can love through that.
Mm-hmm. That's so good, Mili. So we are super grateful. First, I would say, Jesus and God, and just his mercies. And then secondly, I think, just the people that have been mentors in our lives, the people that have even said yes to our crazy dreams, even as I think of, like our pastor at Palm Harvest, Pastor Mike, because in a sense, like we have this studio right here where we're recording, and it was because I brought some ideas to him and I said, oh, maybe this place could be a studio where we can create podcasts and things like that. And for somebody to say yes and listen to the Holy Spirit and say, oh, maybe the Holy Spirit is doing something here, and provide the opportunity for that, I think it's massive. Like, I feel like it's God is behind it. Like God is the one that's been opening doors and kind of like directing our path and saying, okay, this is where you should go. This is, even sometimes the interviews that I have on the show, I say, okay, God, like you bring the people, and some people never reply. Some people do, like I've invited people that who is listening, you don't have even an idea of some of the people that I have invited who have said no. And I'm not going to tell you because whatever, it doesn't matter. But I've aspired to talk to like people out there, like people in influence, politicians around the world and whatnot. And some have said yes, right? Like I've had amazing people on the podcast, and I think it's just God is the one that has been opening the doors, and I think he's the one that's saying, okay, maybe let's have this voice, have an audience, and I think that's one of the goals with Christian Podcast to listen to the Holy Spirit. And also, I'm super thankful to start seeing that what we're doing, it's producing an impact, right? That people are responding to it. And even just the conversation of what we are doing. Some of our videos on YouTube are are growing, are getting even more and more views. Our channel in English is growing. So I'm super excited for that, you know. And
I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my gosh, this dream is so big, but I know it's yours, God, and you will provide. You will give us everything we need to make it through, you know. I'm nervous. I'm excited.
Yeah, so all of that is so good, Mili. So let's just do one final, like, where do we want to point people to if they want to support what we're doing with Christian Podcast as a media company? You were talking about like our new cops, right? And the fact that we're saying now we are our own sponsors, right? And again, I mean, if there's somebody with big bucks who says, I want to sponsor you guys. So
yeah, I know. But maybe you listen here from Costa Mesa. If you're here around and you say, I want to
get to know you.
You can come here to our office and we have them here for sale. Or we can send them anywhere on the U.S., right, Beto? By email. We can send them
by regular mail.
Yes.
Yeah,
but
email would be hard. But yes, yeah, we're shipping everywhere. I think anywhere in the world. I'm not super sure because it's like the first time we're trying it's called WooCommerce. So I'm a little new to that. You know, I'm experimenting. But one of the things I think, you know, as we kind of discuss of this dream and where it comes from, is I never was part of a business owning anything. You know, my dad had a print shop in Mexico, but I feel like he never said, oh, this is how you manage a print shop. This is how you do the business, other than just seeing him doing it, right? So I think that was his influence, that I got to see him doing the things, calling the people, and I think that was a schooling in itself. But when it came to the details, like he never said, oh, you know, this is how you put the papers together. This is how you go to the IRS in Mexico or whatever. So none of those. So I think that has been a challenge of itself, Mili, where
to do a little bit of everything.
A little bit of
but
everything.
I feel like we're going to get in some point, Beto, where we're going to have that people to do that for you. So you don't worry. Just
Thank
to be you.
Thank
be
you.
and give us more content, you know, give us your ideas. And I think we were applause what you're doing right now, and you don't worry. I think if you have a good product, will sell by themselves.
So that's true. I think I'm an idea guy, that's for sure. I think that's one of the gifts God's given me, and I'm not afraid. I have so many ideas. I have so much.
If you need idea, you can contact him.
Yes. And finally, I just want to say, we do want to have products on our shop that we like. So I actually really, really, really like this cup I'm holding in my hands. And I know it might sound silly, you know, to be like so focused on selling like one cup, but I think this is the beginning of something amazing, you know, because we want to create content that is epic, that even when you look at this cup and, you know, let's say you purchase it and you're drinking your coffee and it tastes amazing in your mouth, and then you look at the logo and you read Christian Podcast, that it would be a reminder that good things are happening, that it would be a reminder of good stories, that it would be a reminder of hope in your own life, and that it looks amazing, you know, that you are proud of whatever you're holding in your hand. So whether it be, you know, a hat, a shirt, you know, a cup, or whatever we create in the future, as we're saying, you know, we want to create movies, we want to create documentaries, so that whatever you watch online with us, that you can trust. If it comes from Christian Podcast, I know it's going to be amazing. I know it's going to be quality, right? And we've grown. You know, we started, even this podcast, you know, we started doing it in our own house. We were sitting in my table. Now we have two camera angles. We have an amazing software that's broadcasting. We have a better audio. So we're improving, right? We're improving on our end when it comes to podcasting. But bigger than podcasting as an audio thing, we think podcast is just going to mean media, and Christian Podcast is going to be a top content producer when it comes to quality content that people can be inspired with, challenged, and grow their faith even. Right, Mili?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to say anything else?
No, I can just thank you so much for having me, and It's been a pleasure to walk with you all this time. I love you.
Okay, so here we go. That's right, my friends. Thank you for listening to this episode of Christian Podcast, the first ever introduction to my wife, Mili. So good. And like you heard, check us out at ChristianPodcast.com. Go to our shop. Check out our products, especially our coffee mugs right now. Do so. Like this show. Subscribe. Follow us on ROKU TV. Give us a positive review. That helps a ton. Follow us on Spotify. We are on a process to become the #1 platform on Google.
That excited.
On Google, when you search up Christian Podcast, we're like number 15 or whatever. We want to be #1.
And we need your support.
We need your support.
This video.
Yes, so help us be
Thank you.
#1. All right? We'll see you guys on the next one.